Welcome to my channel Revenge Last. Here every story begins with trust and ends with justice. I never believed in warnings from strangers. Not until that night. It was 11:43 p.m. when my phone buzzed. A single notification lighting up the darkness of my bedroom. I was half asleep, the kind of tired that comes from chasing deadlines and fighting the world alone. Running my own business had taught me many things: how to survive, how to lead, how to lose. But nothing had prepared me for what I was about to read. The message said, "Don't let him make the first move." No name. No number I recognized. Just those 7 words, sitting there on my screen like a riddle waiting to explode. First I laughed. I thought it was spam or some marketing prank. But something about the tone, the urgency, made my chest tighten. Who was him? And what did make the first move mean? I stared at the message for almost a full minute, my thumb hovering over delete. But instinct whispered don't. So I didn't. The world I built. My name is Alicia Morgan. I'm 32, founder of Rise and Bloom, a lifestyle brand I built from scratch. What started as handmade candles in my tiny apartment had turned into a $1 million online business. People saw the success, the magazine covers, the awards, the perfect Instagram feed, but they never saw the nights I cried alone, wondering if I was good enough. My business was my pride, my armor. And beside me through every step was Ethan Hale. He wasn't just my boyfriend. He was my partner in everything: business strategy, product expansion, even late-night brainstorming sessions over coffee and cold pizza. He was charming, smart, confident, the kind of man who walked into a room and made everyone listen. And for 3 years I believed he was the best thing that ever happened to me. We were supposed to launch our new product line together. A luxury fragrance collection called Essence. It was the biggest project of my career. Investors were lined up. Pre-orders were exploding. Ethan had promised it would take our company global. But that message, those 7 words, refused to leave my mind. The doubt that wouldn't die. The next morning I tried to ignore it. I went through my usual routine: coffee, emails, meetings, but something inside me was uneasy. When Ethan walked into the office, smiling like the world belonged to him, I studied him differently. His eyes were kind but distant. His tone was warm but rushed. He had always been good at multitasking, but that day he was distracted. He kept checking his phone. He left calls unanswered when I was around. And when I asked him what was wrong, he smiled and said, "Just investor stuff, babe. You know how stressful launches are." I did. But I also knew that investor stuff never made him this nervous. That night, while I was reviewing campaign drafts, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "He's not who you think he is." My breath caught. I typed back immediately. "Who is this? What are you talking about?" No reply. Just silence. I stared at my reflection in the laptop screen. My face looked calm, but inside my mind was chaos. Why was someone warning me? Was it a trick? A jealous competitor? Or was there really something I couldn't see? Cracks in the mirror. The following week was a blur. Meetings, calls, designs, everything looked normal on the outside. But my focus was gone. Every time Ethan smiled, I felt a twinge of fear. Every time his phone rang, I wondered if he was hiding something. One evening, I walked into the office early, before anyone else arrived. Ethan's laptop was open on the conference table. That wasn't unusual. He often worked late. But this time, I noticed something strange. A folder labeled Phoenix Project. I frowned. That wasn't ours. Our next project was Essence. So what was Phoenix? I clicked. The files were password protected. But one thumbnail preview showed a contract header: Phoenix Brand Holdings LLC. And right beneath it, Ethan Hale, co-founder. I froze. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Ethan had always said Rise and Bloom was ours. Equal partnership. Equal dream. But Phoenix? That was something else. Something he hadn't told me about. My hands were shaking when I closed the laptop. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. There had to be. Maybe it was an investor project. Maybe he was expanding for us. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The kind of truth that burns quietly before it destroys everything. The warning becomes real. That night, as I sat in my car staring at the city lights, the message replayed in my head. Don't let him make the first move. I finally understood. Whoever had sent that message knew something I didn't, and they wanted me to be ready. But ready for what? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on my balcony watching the sunrise, thinking about all the sacrifices I had made. The nights I worked while Ethan slept, the deals I negotiated while he took the credit, the faith I had in him when no one else believed. And now that faith was cracking. I decided to test him. Just once. To see how deep the lie went. The test. The next day, I told Ethan we had a new investor interested in Essence. Someone from Europe, a potential game changer. I said I'd scheduled a meeting for both of us that Friday. His reaction was immediate. A flicker of surprise he tried to hide behind a smile. That's great news. What's the investor's name? You'll meet him soon, I said. It's better we go together. He nodded, but his jaw tightened. He looked nervous. That evening, when I returned to my office to grab my purse, I noticed something strange again. My laptop was on, even though I'd shut it off. The screen showed my inbox, and one email was open. An email I hadn't read yet. It was the investor pitch I just drafted. Someone had forwarded it to phoenixbrandholdings@gmail.com. My entire body went cold. He wasn't just building a secret company. He was using my ideas, my work, my trust to launch it behind my back. And suddenly, the message's warning felt terrifyingly clear. He was planning to move first. He was going to destroy me before I even saw it coming. The breaking point. That night, I sat in the dark of my apartment with tears streaming down my face. My phone was beside me, that same number still in my message list. I typed back, desperate this time. Who are you? Please tell me what's happening. A minute passed. Then another. Then finally a reply. He's almost ready. If you want to survive, watch him closely. Don't confront him yet. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. Whoever this was, they knew everything. But how? And why help me? My mind raced through every possibility. An employee, a hacker, a jealous rival, but none of it mattered. All that mattered was that Ethan was betraying me, and I couldn't afford to be his victim. That night I made a decision. If he was going to make a move, I'd make mine first. I looked out the window at the city skyline. The same skyline that had once inspired me to dream. Now it reminded me of how quickly dreams can turn into weapons. He thought I was blind. He thought he could outsmart me. But he'd forgotten one thing. I built Rise and Bloom with nothing but my will. And I wasn't going to let anyone, not even the man I loved, take it from me. I opened my journal and wrote 7 words of my own. Don't let him make the first move. When you build your life around trust, the moment it cracks, the silence becomes unbearable. After discovering the email he'd sent to Phoenix Brand Holdings, I realized something chilling. Ethan wasn't just planning to betray me. He had already started. But whoever was behind those warning messages was right. I couldn't confront him yet. Not until I knew everything. Not until I understood how deep the lie went. Playing the role. For the next few days, I played my part perfectly. I smiled. I laughed. I called him love just like before. Every moment felt like acting in a movie where the ending was still being written. He didn't suspect a thing. He thought I was busy preparing for our investor meeting, the fake one I'd created to test him. He even kissed my forehead one morning and said, "You're my lucky charm, Alicia. We're unstoppable together." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the truth in his face and ask him why. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because smart revenge isn't about emotion. It's about patience. The stranger's clues. 2 days later, I got another message. This time it came at noon, while I was in a cafe near our office. Check his calendar. Look for the word Phoenix. My heart raced. I looked around trying to see if someone was watching me. No one was. Just ordinary people sipping coffee, typing on laptops, living their lives. I went back to the office pretending to need some files from Ethan's desk. He was out for a lunch meeting. That was his new excuse lately. When I opened his laptop, I found his calendar synced to our company account. And there it was, Phoenix meeting Friday 3 p.m. The same day as our supposed investor meeting. My stomach dropped. He wasn't planning to meet with me at all. He was meeting someone else. Someone connected to Phoenix. That was it. The confirmation I needed. I took a deep breath, snapped a quick photo of the screen and walked out, heart pounding so loud I could barely think. My quiet plan. That night I called my best friend Clara, a data analyst who'd helped me during the early days of Rise and Bloom. I didn't tell her everything, not yet, but I said enough for her to understand I needed help. Clara, I need you to check something for me. A company called Phoenix Brand Holdings LLC. I think it's connected to Ethan. Ethan, she said, shocked. You mean you're Ethan? Yeah, but keep this between us. Please. She agreed. Within hours, she sent me a file. The company had been registered under 2 names, Ethan Hale and Lydia Gray. Lydia. I knew that name. She was a marketing consultant Ethan had introduced months ago. Someone who helped us with branding strategies. I never liked her energy. Too charming. Too curious. Too close to him. And now she was his business partner. I felt a sting in my chest. Not just betrayal but humiliation. All those late-night strategy calls, all those sudden office trips he said were work-related. They weren't. They were planning their new empire, built from the ruins of mine. The deeper I looked, once I started digging, the truth began unraveling like a thread. Clara helped me trace payments, emails, contracts. Ethan had been slowly transferring client contacts, supplier deals, even our fragrance formulas into Phoenix. He'd built a mirror image of Rise and Bloom. He wasn't just stealing my company. He was stealing me. Each discovery hit like a cold wave. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Something inside me hardened. A new version of myself forming in the fire of betrayal. That night, I stood in front of my mirror and whispered, "You wanted to make the first move, Ethan? Fine. But this is my game now." The bait. Friday arrived, the day both meetings were supposed to happen. I dressed in a white suit. Calm. Elegant. Confident. The kind of woman he underestimated. I told Ethan that our European investor had postponed, so I'd be working from the office instead. He smiled, a rehearsed empty smile. "No problem. I've got a quick call anyway. Might step out for a few hours." "Of course," I said softly. "Take your time." As soon as he left, I followed him. From a distance, I watched him walk into a high-rise downtown, the glass building reflecting the afternoon sun. I waited across the street, pretending to be on my phone. Minutes later, a familiar woman in a red dress entered the same building. Lydia. So it was true. My heart clenched, but my face stayed cold. I took a photo of them together entering the Phoenix office suite. Evidence. Proof. The meeting I wasn't supposed to see. Clara helped me arrange something clever. A remote access through Ethan's cloud drive. When he connected his laptop in that meeting, I could see the presentation on my own screen back at the office. I watched as he stood beside Lydia, confidently pitching Phoenix's exclusive fragrance brand. Every slide, every design, every formula, it was mine. my creativity, my branding, my colors stolen and renamed. He was presenting my world as if he had built it himself, and the investors were nodding, impressed. That moment shattered something inside me, but I didn't break down. I just whispered, "You'll regret this." The stranger revealed. That evening I received one final message. "He's done it. Time to move." This time there was an attachment, a photo. It showed Ethan and Lydia shaking hands with a man I recognized, one of my former investors who'd recently declined to renew his contract with Rise and Bloom. Now I understood everything. They turned him too. I replied, "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" A moment later the response came, "Let's just say I used to be where you are now." That's when it hit me. Whoever this person was, they'd been betrayed by Ethan before, and they wanted revenge just as much as I did. The turning point. For the first time in weeks I smiled. Not out of joy. Out of clarity. I had been playing defense, waiting, reacting. But now, it was my turn to make the first move. I knew his weakness, pride. He craved attention, validation, and power. So I decided to use those against him. Over the weekend I created a plan. Not loud, not emotional, but surgical, precise, intelligent. I'd let him think he'd won. Then I'd take back everything, publicly, perfectly, and permanently. I sat at my desk late that night, staring at our company logo glowing on my screen. The same logo I'd drawn years ago on a napkin, dreaming of something beautiful. And I whispered, "He may have taken my trust, but not my vision." My revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be elegant, calculated. And when it was over, he'd be left with nothing but his own reflection, the one thing he couldn't ever trust. The first rule of revenge is simple. Never let your enemy know you're planning it. After that day, I stopped being Alicia the entrepreneur. I became Alicia the strategist. Every smile, every word, every move, all became part of my act. Ethan thought he'd already won. He had no idea that every step he took was now inside my silent trap. The mask I wore. On Monday morning, I walked into the office as if nothing had happened. I greeted everyone with the same calm confidence I was known for. Ethan was already there, sitting at his desk, scrolling through his phone. He looked up and smiled. "Morning, babe. You look radiant today." I smiled back. "Thanks. Feel great. The launch next week. I think it's going to be our best yet." He nodded, not realizing the irony in my voice. Because next week's launch, the one he thought he was controlling, was about to become his undoing. The silent shift. Over the next few days, I began moving pieces quietly. First, I met with Clara, my trusted friend. Together, we created a shadow project, a secret server where I stored all my original formulas, brand contracts, and product designs. Every detail was time-stamped, every document digitally signed under my name. Legal protection. Evidence. Then I reached out to our investor contacts. I told them a story, half true, half bait, that Ethan and I were exploring separate creative directions, but that Rise and Bloom would be unveiling something extraordinary soon. Something authentic and revolutionary. The investors were intrigued. I could hear the spark of curiosity in their voices. Ethan, meanwhile, thought they'd gone silent on us, not knowing I'd already redirected their attention to my next move. The seed of doubt. To manipulate someone like Ethan, you don't confront them. You let their ego do the work. So I started dropping hints. Small ones. Subtle. During lunch, I'd casually mention how the market feels oversaturated, or how new brands are popping up faster than ever. He'd tense just slightly. One day I said softly, "Do you ever wonder if someone could copy us? Like use our style, our exact formula?" He laughed nervously. "No one could do that better than us, Alicia. We're untouchable." But his eyes betrayed him just for a second. And that second was enough. The counterbrand. Then came the heart of my plan. Using my private resources, a few loyal designers, a secret manufacturer, and Clara's tech support, I built a new brand in just 2 weeks. A sister company under my full ownership but anonymous. The brand name, Ember and Rise, a symbol for rebirth through fire. The fragrance line looked similar enough to Phoenix to confuse the market, but it carried a deeper emotional story, one that resonated with real customers. We even used subtle color tones and patterns Ethan had stolen, just enough for people to notice the coincidence. I planned its launch one day before Ethan's Phoenix reveal. My goal wasn't to compete. It was to expose the leak. 3 days before his big launch, I arranged a quiet leak. One of our PR contacts, someone Ethan trusted, received anonymous photos of Phoenix's design files. They were almost identical to Rise and Bloom's earlier drafts. And the email asked a single question. Didn't Alicia Morgan design these first? By morning, whispers began spreading in the industry. People were talking. Reporters started asking questions. Is Phoenix copying Rise and Bloom? Are Ethan Hale's ideas original? Ethan didn't know where it started. But I did. As I started it, his world begins to crack. That night he came home frustrated. He threw his phone on the couch and said, "Can you believe it? Someone's spreading lies about me. About us." I looked at him calmly. Lies? What kind of lies? That Phoenix copied Rise and Bloom. I mean, can you imagine? I tilted my head, pretending to think. Maybe people just see similarities. You know how trends overlap. He looked at me confused. You don't seem worried. Why should I be? You said Phoenix was your project, right? Not ours. That froze him. He blinked, trying to recover. Well, I just meant, I'm helping them consult, that's all. I smiled faintly. Of course. Just consulting. And I walked away before he could say another word. That was the first time I saw fear in his eyes. The calm before the fire. The next 48 hours felt like standing at the edge of a storm. Everything looked calm, but I could feel the thunder coming. Ethan became restless. He worked late, made calls behind closed doors, and barely spoke to me. Lydia stopped visiting the office, which told me she was panicking too. And in the middle of their chaos, Ember and Rise launched quietly. No press release. No noise. Just a simple online drop, but the response was electric. Customers loved it. The story. The scent. The authenticity. Ethan didn't notice at first. He was too busy trying to control the rumors. Until, finally, the morning of his launch day, he did. Launch day, his fall begins. That morning I dressed in black, symbolic, deliberate. He was pacing the living room, talking on his phone. His voice was sharp, angry. What do you mean the investors pulled out? What happened overnight? He ended the call and turned to me. Alicia, did you hear about this? The same distributors we pitched to, they just signed with another brand called Ember and Rise. Ever heard of it? I sipped my coffee, eyes calm. Sounds familiar. Maybe they just like the name better. He frowned. This isn't funny, Alicia. Whoever they are, they copied our concept. Our concept? I asked softly. Or Rise and Bloom's? The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. The turning knife. Later that afternoon, I received an email from one of Phoenix's investors. It wasn't addressed to me directly, but it was forwarded by Clara. The subject line read, Urgent. Ownership discrepancy inquiry. Someone had sent them the legal documentation proving that every design, scent formula, and marketing asset they'd been shown by Ethan was registered under my intellectual property rights. In other words, everything Ethan presented as his work legally belonged to me. Phoenix's investors immediately froze their funding. Their PR team demanded explanations. The story hit the business news within hours. Headline: Scandal at Phoenix. Alleged intellectual property theft exposed. By evening, Ethan's phone was blowing up with calls he couldn't answer. His world was collapsing, and he had no idea that the person pulling the strings was sitting right across from him, watching quietly. The night before the confrontation. That night I stood on the balcony watching the city lights. The same skyline that once symbolized ambition now felt like poetic justice. The stranger who had warned me months ago hadn't messaged again. Their job was done, and now it was my turn to finish what they started. Tomorrow, Ethan would wake up to find everything he built gone. Phoenix would burn, and I'd rise from its ashes. But before I ended it, I wanted him to know exactly what I knew. Every detail, every secret, every lie. Because revenge isn't complete until your enemy realizes why they lost. I whispered into the night. You made the first move, Ethan, but I'll make the last. And in that moment I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt powerful, peaceful, and ready. Morning light spilled through the window. It was launch day, the day Ethan had been waiting for. But this time it wasn't the man I once loved who woke up beside me. It was a stranger, and he was about to meet the real me. The calm before the collision. I woke up earlier than usual, my heart steady, not racing. For the first time in months, I felt no fear, no confusion, just clarity. I made coffee, packed my laptop, and slipped the small black folder into my bag. The folder that carried everything. Proof. Records. Emails. Contracts. Every lie he told. Frozen in ink and time-stamped truth. When Ethan finally came out of the bedroom, he looked exhausted. His hair was a mess, his shirt half-buttoned, eyes red from sleepless hours of panic. He looked at me like a drowning man searching for a lifeboat. Alicia, everything's falling apart. I set down my coffee cup slowly. I know. You know. He frowned. How? I smiled faintly. Because I've been watching it happen piece by piece. He blinked confused. He had no idea what those words meant yet. The meeting request. That morning I called an emergency board meeting, inviting our senior staff, legal advisors, and investors. Ethan thought it was about saving Phoenix. I told him we'd discuss damage control. He agreed instantly, desperate to fix what he thought was just a misunderstanding. What he didn't know was that the meeting wasn't for Phoenix. It was for Rise and Bloom, and it was his judgment day. He arrived first, pacing, tapping his phone, muttering under his breath. When I walked in, the room went silent. Our investors looked uneasy. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered. Ethan smiled nervously. Thank you all for coming. I just want to clarify these ridiculous rumors about intellectual theft. I raised my hand. No need, Ethan. I'll handle that part. His face twitched. He hated when I took control. The exposure. I opened the black folder and placed it gently on the table. Each page inside represented a piece of the truth he tried to bury. These, I began, are the original files for Rise and Bloom's fragrance collection. Created, designed, and trademarked by me 2 years ago. The same files Phoenix used in their presentation last week. He froze. I continued, my voice calm, controlled. Here are the transfer receipts, from our suppliers to Phoenix Brand Holdings. Notice the same ingredients, same formula codes, even the same batch numbers. And here, I flipped another page. The email you sent to their investors. From your personal account. A hush fell over the room. Every face turned toward him. Ethan tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. Alicia, come on, this is insane. You're twisting things. You knew about Phoenix. No, I said softly. I knew about you. He blinked. I could see his pulse racing in his throat. The truth is, I said, standing, you didn't just betray me, you stole from me. From this company. From everyone in this room who believed in us. I turned the folder toward him. The final document on top. A letter from our legal team. This, I said, is your official termination notice. Effective immediately. His desperate defense. He slammed his hand on the table. You can't do this. You need me. Without me, this brand falls apart. I met his eyes, steady, unflinching. That's where you're wrong. This brand was never built on lies. It was built on truth, Ethan. And truth doesn't need you. He looked around the room, desperate for someone to back him up. No one moved. Not a single word of support. Even Lydia wasn't there. I had already seen to that. The final blow. As he stood there trembling, I leaned closer. Not out of anger, but out of quiet victory. You know what's funny? I whispered. You thought the message, "Don't let him make the first move," was just a warning. But it was also a prophecy. You made your move, Ethan. And now it's over. He looked at me in disbelief. You knew. I knew everything. From the moment that message arrived. He staggered back a step, like the air had been punched out of him. I picked up my folder, turned to leave, then paused at the door. By the way, I said quietly, Phoenix filed for bankruptcy this morning. Your partner Lydia sold her shares to cover the damages. Seems like she made her move too. His face turned pale. His perfect confidence gone. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. The aftermath. I walked out of that boardroom, and for the first time in years, I felt light. The air outside felt fresh. The sound of the city wasn't noise anymore. It was music. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened it. A single message. You did well. I told you. Never let him make the first move. I smiled. Who are you? I typed back. No reply. Just silence, and somehow that silence felt complete. Reflection. That night, I stood by my window watching the city glow beneath me. My company was safe. My heart still hurt, yes, but it was whole again. I thought about Ethan. About how love can blind you. How ambition can twist someone you once trusted. But more than anything, I thought about that message, those 7 words that changed everything. Don't let him make the first move. Maybe it wasn't just a warning about betrayal. Maybe it was a lesson about strength, about intuition, about believing your instincts when the world tells you to doubt yourself. Because in the end, revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming yourself. I whispered to myself, you tried to take everything from me, Ethan. But in doing so, you reminded me who I really am. And with that, I smiled, closed the window, and walked back into my new beginning. When the storm ends, you don't hear it. You just notice the silence. And in that silence, you realize the world kept moving. Even without the person you once thought you couldn't live without. That's what I felt. Weeks after everything came crashing down. A new morning. The city looked different now, or maybe I did. I used to walk through these streets rushing to meetings, chasing goals, trying to prove I belonged. Now I walk slowly, breathing, watching, listening. For the first time, success didn't mean running faster. It meant standing still and feeling alive. After Ethan's exposure, the board cleared my name completely. Phoenix Brand Holdings collapsed under legal pressure. Our investors returned. Our team, the same people who once whispered doubts, now looked at me with respect. But what mattered most wasn't the victory in the headlines. It was the quiet victory within. The echo of his name. Sometimes I still heard his name. On the news. In conversations. In the fragments of memory that appeared when I least expected them. I didn't hate him anymore. Not really. Hate is heavy. And I had carried it for too long. Ethan once told me that the world belonged to those who made the first move. He was wrong. The world belongs to those who wait for the right one. I had made mine, not out of rage but out of reason. And that made all the difference. The message returns. One evening as I was cleaning old files from my laptop, I found it again. The message that started everything. Don't let him make the first move. No name. No number. Just those words. I stared at it for a long time. Who sent it? A friend? A stranger? A part of me that I had ignored for too long? Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the universe speaks to us in ways we can't explain. A whisper, a coincidence, a stranger's warning, and it's up to us to listen. I smiled softly. That message wasn't just about Ethan. It was about me. About taking back control of my story, my emotions, my destiny. Rise and Bloom, the rebirth. 6 months later, Rise and Bloom became one of the fastest growing lifestyle brands in the city. Not because of revenge, but because of resilience. We launched a new collection, the Phoenix line. Each product carried a single phrase on its label. From ashes we rise. People loved it. They didn't know the story behind it. But I did. When the press asked about the inspiration, I simply said, it's about transformation. About learning when to let go and when to fight back. They nodded, smiled, and wrote their articles. But deep down I knew that line was a goodbye letter to my past. The unexpected encounter. It happened on a random afternoon. I was at a cafe signing off emails when I heard a familiar voice. I looked up and there he was. Ethan. He looked smaller. Not physically, but in spirit. The sharp confidence was gone. The arrogance replaced by quiet regret. He noticed me. For a second we both froze. Then he walked over slowly. Alicia, he said softly. You look different. Maybe I finally see clearly, I replied. He nodded, eyes filled with things he didn't know how to say. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air. Heavy, real, unexpected. For a long time I said nothing. Then I smiled, not with bitterness but peace. I forgive you, but I don't forget. Forgetting means I'd erase the lesson. He looked down. You were always stronger than me. No, I said. I just learned faster. We shared one last silent moment. Two people who once dreamed together, now standing on opposite sides of their choices. And then he walked away. No anger. No hatred. Just closure. Looking back, I realized revenge wasn't the real story. It was just the surface. The deeper story was about rediscovery. About finding strength where you thought there was none. About trusting your intuition. That small voice that whispers when the world screams over it. That's what the unknown message really meant. Not to strike first, but to believe yourself first. If I had ignored that message, I would have lost everything. Not just my company, but myself. So now I tell people this. When someone warns you, listen. But when your heart warns you, listen twice. Because sometimes the danger isn't out there. It's in the silence of ignoring your own truth. The final scene. It's late now. My office lights glow over the city skyline. Outside, the streets shimmer under the rain. I take one last look at the message still pinned to my wall, the one that started it all. Don't let him make the first move. I whisper softly, thank you, whoever you are. Then I turn off the light, walk into the elevator, and as the doors close, I smile. Because this time the move is mine.